Genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, are organisms whose DNA has been altered. In the case of food modification, this is done to increase efficiency in plant breeding, help fight plant pathogens, increase micronutrients, and decrease negative environmental impact. GMOs are a highly controversial topic. There are a lot of negative attitudes and stigmas attached to GMOs. We have explored why this topic is so highly contested and how emotions seem to be often overpowering the facts. Contrary to popular belief, 88% of the scientific community agrees that GMOs are safe to consume and safe for the environment. %. That's a higher percentage than those of the scientific community that agree that global warming is attributed to human influence. Conversely, only 37% of Americans surveyed believe that GMOs can be safe and healthy. When we examine the attitude of those at Western Washington University, we found that this statistic seemed to be accurately and proportionally represented among our peers. About 30% of the students we interviewed were open to the benefits of GMOs, while about 70% were staunchly opposed. Anti-GMO rhetoric asserts that GMOs are hazardous, unnatural, dangerous, and contaminated. However, after exploring some of the 2,000 studies conducted over the last 30 years, we found these claims are unfounded and based in fear, not fact. As the anti-GMO agenda continues to obstruct growth of healthy genetically modified foods and demand costly and wasteful labeling measurements, the world takes note. While it might not directly affect students of Western as consumers, it might affect those who struggle to make enough money to buy fresh fruits and vegetables. And it certainly affects those living in developing countries, whose policymakers take note of the United States and further obstruct their own fight against hunger with genetically modified foods.
Very non-GMO.
Okay.
No.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
GMOs, I think of like bad cruelties toward animals.
People who are more in depth on the subjects probably stay away from them, obviously.
GMOs.
Like bad food you shouldn't eat.
Okay.
Like it's so unnatural.
Yeah.
And if you're eating stuff that could potentially give you cancer, I feel like people should know that.
Processed food.
Universities across the world are incredibly diverse and are home to many different cultures and social genres, and Western Washington University is no different. It is generally understood that one attends a university to further their education. In addition to fostering education, universities are progressive institutions. Why are such a large proportion of educated and open-minded individuals resistant to scientific evidence that conflicts with their belief? There have been more than 2,000 studies about GMOs conducted over the last 30 years, but despite the massive amount of information, there is still a strong backlash. Scientific evidence has refuted the fear-mongering claims of cancer, lack of biodiversity, and allergy concerns, among many others. All of these studies are peer-reviewed, and a large portion is also done by independent scientists, meaning that they are not working for the benefit of corporations. This is different from the anti-GMO groups, which often cite studies that, if published, are published in unscholarly, non-peer-reviewed journals. The Vikings Commons Dining Hall within the university's campus is illustrative of not only a health, but also environmentally conscious campus. The school's motto, Active Minds, Changing Lives, implies that it promotes an open, active mind, ready to learn and change the world for the better. By most accounts, that's what we seem to do. We are a highly acclaimed and celebrated university for our efforts towards sustainability. We are progressing towards equality with gender-neutral restrooms, and we generally employ a spirit of open-mindedness. It is the school that has ranked first in the nation among medium-sized colleges for the amount of Peace Corps volunteers it produces for 3 years in a row. This indicates a strong desire of the school and its students to change the world for the better. So why in one of the most progressive and liberal schools in the state, firmly grounded in both education and open-mindedness, are most students still resistant to scientific evidence that conflicts with their own opinions? One reason, Joe Keohane explains, might be cognitive dissonance. He asserts that oftentimes individuals who are educated are even more certain they are correct and cling to their preconceived ideas even harder when presented with conflicting information. He claims that it's never been easier for people to be wrong while being sure they are right.
I actually know a lot about GMOs. My major is business and sustainability. So
Did it cause cancer?
yeah, I mean, you're like changing the natural way of things and trying to add it. I mean, there's benefits and cons. It's not like it's going to give you cancer if you do it. It's kind of like cigarettes. Like not everyone smokes is going to get cancer, but your chances raise. And it's just less tough.
It can contribute to a lot of things like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, which are like autoimmune diseases, but they make it really hard for your system to break down food. So it can contribute to things.
Before I came to school, I don't know anything I knew about it, honestly. So I'm just becoming more educated about the subject and kind of realizing what GMOs are and how it affects me. So yeah, definitely. I mean,
Interesting because just the fact that just but I know that there hasn't, like I've personally done some research into finding out GMOs, and they're just, I don't know if there's actually been studies that say that GMOs are necessarily okay with that. Either needs to be like an actual study, and the thing is, like, we haven't had GMOs around so that long enough to actually see effects too. I mean, I think, if I remember correctly, that there might have been a study on GMOs on rats, and the rats actually developed like tumors and such, but because of media and some other scientists, it was thrown out. But I don't think other than that there hasn't been like a really good, I don't think there's been like a really good study on it.
I think there's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of people who discount what scientists say that they're safe. People who have masters and PhDs in that topic.
Yeah.
Another reason students at WW may be majority anti-GMO is because they are students at WW. In Lynn Staley's chapter, Place, she explores and expands the complex meanings and implications of place. She claims that people's identities are shaped by location within webs of cultural, social, economic, and political relationships. Most importantly, she describes place as an active agent.
Not as much diversity of ideas, and you're kind of shunned for not agreeing with progressive, liberal Democrats. It's kind of just assumed that you should say, oh, GMOs are bad because all of these people say so.
Like GMOs, but it's like influence, like how like
You have to agree with this or else you're not with us.
Yeah. I feel like people would generally like vegan. Yeah. There's like coverage of protests about things about GMOs, and I remember I used to work at a grocery store, and we would occasionally get people protesting like certain things.
It does kind of have like a negative connotation just because you hear about like
or you see it on boxes like no GMOs, like it's a positive thing.
yeah, definitely. So and we talked about it in Bio 101.
I think like this campus is like very green and friendly, like community friendly, so I feel like if you're mindful of it, then you know that it's a thing. But like if you don't even know what a GMO is, you don't care, I guess. But I think being on like Western campus, like people like raise those awarenesses more, so you're more aware of everything that happens.
And that we compost a lot. There's all those signs that explain, you know, landfill here and compost here and what to put in each of those things. I think that Western is pretty aware of how to protect the environment and what's best for the environment. So I I would say that they probably try and use non-GMO foods, like especially here they have that sign out there where it says where all the local foods come from, and that's a huge list, which I think is really important because those probably don't.
Yes.
We are the future leaders of the world. Doctors, politicians, even just simply voters. We make a difference. Hunger is a real issue, just like racism or sexism or homophobia or anything else we choose to give our attention to. We must continue to pride ourselves in being activists for each other, fighting for each other, but we also are responsible for fighting for those who don't have a voice as well. We're responsible for modifying our conversation.